That was Gomez, but There It Was. Right before that, you heard Gotta Get Out by Fox, Fagan, and Confusions with their song Half-Life. It's time for the weather.
It's time for your KTSW weather report. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. More like, oh, no, because it's 103 right now with a high of 104 and a low of 74. I don't know where that low is.
No.
I don't think we're going to see it. But tomorrow looks like more of the same. High of 103. Thursday, high of 101. So wear your sunscreen. UV protection is, or an umbrella if you want some shade. But other than that, everything is relatively clear. We don't have any chances of rain. A little bit of clouds this weekend and early into next week, but that's it. Otherwise, it's sunny and beautiful.
Yeah, take care of your skin, folks. Your health is paramount, especially in this hot Texas weather. But speaking of heat, we've got some real heat coming up in just a second. We're going to do an interview with Chief from Chief and the Doomsday Device. In just a second, we're going to play a couple PSAs and promos, and we'll be right back with that interview. You're listening to Other Side Drive here on KTSW San Marcos.
Support for KTSW is provided by Studio San Martian, a community art space and retail store selling clothes, jewelry, tea, crystals, and more. Open Wednesday through Sunday from 12 till 8 at 1904 Ranch Road 12, less than a mile from Texas State. More info on upcoming music and art events on their Facebook and Instagram pages at Studio San Martian.
My goodness, where are these things coming from?
Haha, good thing the humans don't know about the 4Ds.
Wait, what?
Seriously? The 4Ds? To deter mosquitoes, it is recommended humans drain standing water, dress in long sleeve shirts and pants, stay inside from dusk to dawn, and use insect repellents with DEET.
That sounds like a perfect way to get rid of you.
No, wait, that's not what I meant.
A message from KTSW, The Other Side of Radio. The Other Side of Radio includes so much more than just music. Follow our Twitter at KTSW_899 to get the info you need for upcoming specialty shows and events. And take a look at our TikTok at the same username to see behind-the-scenes content of your favorite specialty shows and DJs. Our Instagram at KTSW899 showcases our graphic design team and music reviews from the music staff. Our social media accounts are a great way to get to know our KTSW staff, so hit follow and we'll see you on the other side of radio.
This is Other Side Drive here on KTSW 89.9. We've got a very special interview here with a very special friend of ours named Chief. How you doing, Chief?
Doing very well. How about yourselves?
Doing
Great.
Pretty good myself. So you are not a stranger to KTSW. You've been here before.
Oh yes, I've been on both sides of the operation.
All right. So when were you on staff here at KTSW?
So I was on staff here from second semester of 1999 till about 2002, 2003.
Oh wow. Yeah. So we were still back in Old Main.
Yeah. Many years ago.
Before we were even born.
Matter of fact, before this was even Texas State, it was Southwest Texas
That's
at that
right.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
we weren't around at that point.
Oh yeah. Hey, it's all good. You're around now.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And we're living the dream here. But so Chief, you've done a lot since you've left KTSW. You have a blog, you make music, you make films. Where did all this creativity come from? Where did you start out?
It's kind of always been there. I've really been interested in art and music and creativity since I was young, just raised in a house that fostered it. And late in high school, I ran into a substitute teacher who also was in a performing hip-hop group, and I saw his group open for a touring act.
Oh, really?
And that was where I kind of put the two and two together, like regular people do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then when I realized if I put some effort into it, I could probably do it as well. Coincided right around when I went to college, and it all just took off from there.
So are you just involved in the songwriting and performing aspect of it, or are you producing your own stuff as well?
I was producing my own stuff for a while. It's been a minute since I've messed around with the production. I've mainly been working with other producers lately.
Right.
So... But I've been dying to get back into the production.
Yeah, I noticed you put something out in May of this year, a new album, Flux Populi.
Yes, it was an album that I was working on with a producer out of the Vegas, California area named The Mole. And we put it out on Fake 4 Records out of Connecticut.
Do you frequent that area? And
I don't get to travel as much as I'd like to, unfortunately. Right. It's not cheap.
Yeah. But, no, I completely understand.
Yes, but I stay in touch with all those people pretty regularly, and the Connecticut contingent tends to tour a lot too, so I catch up with them when they're in the area.
So what was the process like for this new album that you've put out?
So this album, the producer I was working with actually invited me to be a part of a YouTube series that he had called Weird Rap Discussion Gang, where we would just talk about like offbeat, oddball rap.
Yeah.
And then a couple months into it, he was like, hey, you know, I've been thinking about producing an album, and he just dropped a pack of like 30, 40 beats to me and was like, pick through.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it really just kind of started out of that. We were doing one thing and we're like, let's do another parallel project at the same time.
Right, yeah. And I listened to a bit of that album. I very much enjoyed it. I'm not the biggest hip-hop fan, but there's a lot in there that I really liked. I really like Bizarro World. That's the one that really stuck out to me.
Bizarro World is a fun one. Yeah, that beat kind of, it's got like, it's slow and sort of methodical, but it does have that grand feel to it.
For sure, yeah.
Nice. I'm happy to hear too that as somebody who doesn't really lean towards hip hop normally, that you enjoy it. Because I do find myself, I dwell in hip hop pretty heavily about 50% of the time, but then there's also a whole lot of other stuff that I love listening to, and so I try to have that reflect in my hip hop as much as possible.
What other artists inspire you?
Oh man, huge Joni Mitchell fan.
Oh yeah,
a lot of my close friends know that. Like, Joni's my heart. And then Bob Dylan, as far as like being brave with the writing, those are probably my obvious influences. And then just a million weird 60s, 70s garage bands like Can, Television, just random bands like that.
Yeah, I'm into that kind of stuff too.
Oh yeah, same. It's so good, and it's timeless music.
Yeah, for sure. But on top of music, you've also created, you've dabbled in other creative art forms as well. You've made a few short films. I watched 2 of your short films before this. I watched The Perpendicular was really entertaining. Yeah, and then the Repossession.
Yeah, Repossession was the first one. That was the first that I wrote and directed and shot.
That was really cool. I really liked the text bubbles for the text messages popping up and kind of telling the story between the conversation.
Nice. Okay, I'm glad that translates too. Yeah. Usually when I'm showing it to folks, I'm around to kind of explain it. So it's nice to know I don't have to explain it every time. Although it's straightforward, it pops up like a text bubble. So.
Yeah. I mean, and he looks down at his phone and starts texting whenever it does pop up. So,
Touche.
I mean, I just thought it was a really cool like storytelling facet that I don't see a whole lot within films and short films.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking, what would it be like if there was a modern day silent film per se? So it's kind of like that. You know?
It did remind me of that, how like the text would come up on screen. But and I saw a film on your blog about Liquid Stereo Project. With the it looked like I haven't watched it yet. I didn't have a lot of time before this. I really wanted to, and I'm going to when we're done here. But it looks like you're recording music with a group.
We were. That was actually the question you asked me about, like performing, like jumping into performing. Right. Liquid Stereo Project was the first band that I was a part of. Probably about 3-4 months after I started at KTSW. I actually met the bassist because he called into my show and started pitching me the band. But that documentary, cool. It was. I didn't even go the first time. It took meeting the other guy that eventually became the MC.
Yeah,
and then he invited me and ran into the same guy. And it's like, oh, you're the guy that was inviting me.
Wait a minute.
Yeah. I was a little embarrassed. So I'm like, let me just show out while I'm here.
Yeah.
The rest is history.
That's so interesting how that kind of just develops naturally like that.
Yeah, like even if you don't, sometimes you miss the opportunity if you don't immediately take it, but sometimes destiny is just going to force you,
catches up to you,
to work with people.
Yeah.
And then, that documentary you were talking about, we recorded over at the Fire Station Studios.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yep. So that was us in the Fire Station Studios, probably when it's only 5-ish years old.
Yeah.
It hadn't been around that long when we were in there recording.
Right. I've been in there a couple times. I was throwing around the idea of being a sound recording technology major when I was first applying here. So I toured it a little bit, but I haven't really been in there and taken a good look around or recorded anything there. But
it's a solid studio. It's a real nice place.
That's what I've heard. Yeah. I mean, like Blue October recorded there. So, I mean, it's got to be good enough for them, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they recorded some of the stuff that took them from local band to legends.
Yeah, for sure. But I was getting a lot of this information about your music and about your films on your blog that's also called Chief and the Doomsday Device. So what made you decide to start a blog?
When I started performing and making music and releasing music, the internet was already a thing at that point, but it was really becoming an essential part of being, I guess, what now people know as a content creator, not even just a musician per se. You got to the point where people weren't really leaning on a label so hard because you had this opportunity to bring people directly to you.
Right.
So I got that domain just as a way to not have to tell people about 8 different sites to find my stuff. And then I realized I didn't know what to do with the front page. And I knew so many people that are creative that are always making things. I'm like, why not just share what my friends are doing all the time? And so what started as a functional tool for me to promote myself has primarily become a way for me to promote other people, and share other things. So
that is so cool. I mean, I don't know a lot of people who still have blogs, but the fact that you're using this as a avenue to promote other people that you admire, that says a lot about your character, in my opinion. I very much admire that. And I saw that you promoted a KTSW post somewhat recently, a Typical Girls video.
It was Typical Girls. The lead singer and guitarist is also a really good beat hip hop electronic producer as well.
Interesting.
He makes music under the name Kinder, and I've actually made music with him.
Yeah, I did see that on your. I think that's the #1 song on your Apple Music page.
Oh wow!
Actually, the one with Kinder.
I need to look more into my analytics and my statistics. I never checked that, but Kinder and I have a really good working energy. We get together and it's like, for to set humility aside, it's the kind of stuff I can really be like, yo, this is good. You kind of want to even be humble and check yourself sometimes, but when he throws music, it really brings the best out of me in terms of writing.
Yeah, it's good to have that kind of people by your side, especially if you're vibing really well and you're trying to create something. It's good to have someone who's on the same wavelength as you, for sure.
For sure, even more creative, man. Kinder's such a creative guy. Yeah.
Whenever you go down the rabbit hole per se of Chief, you'll see a producer, a director, a DJ, a musical artist, a blogger, a director, and an actor. On your blog, you're described as a Renaissance man, and I'm going to say that can't be. It's the perfect representation for what you seem to be doing. But I want to ask, what drives you to expand into all these different mediums? Is it that you don't want to be so mundane and be in one place the whole time, or is it you want to get your outreach? What really drives you to expand?
Definitely half of it would be the first thing. I feel if I get into a repetitive kind of cycle, it bores me.
Yeah.
And that's the worst thing, like where you get bored with what you're doing, but you continue to do it.
Yeah.
Then it comes out in the art you create, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I would say that is the foundational aspect of it. And then the second half is almost like this little challenge. It's like if I see something that looks interesting, intriguing, and I think I have the capacity to be a part of it or contribute to it, I owe it to myself to like try to become involved in those things. So yeah, it's kind of personal growth, I guess, would be the easiest way to describe the other half of it. It's kind of a mix of those two. Inspirationals and drives.
Yeah. Are you looking forward to any projects coming up in the near future?
I am working on another project with Kinder at the moment, and then I've kind of actually been dipping my toe a little heavier into social media and content creation.
Interesting.
I've been Twitch streaming really regularly
wow.
these days.
That's cool.
Yeah, I was trying to make YouTube content, but I just don't really have the time to put in the effort and create what I want to.
Right.
And I don't want to drive myself into being stressed and frustrated because I can't. So I'll just table that for now.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of Twitch streaming over YouTube videos, because with YouTube there's that expectation of it being more of a crafted piece of work that you've edited together to make it be more polished, rather, versus with the Twitch stream, it's all live and in the moment.
Yeah,
there's a
raw.
little bit of planning involved, but for the most part it's mostly just interacting with your viewers and your chatters, and seeing where the stream and the vibe of the evening takes you.
And it really gives me, like, it takes me back to the days of doing radio,
right.
But then it's got that added element, like you say, a live chat interaction. And I don't just have to be constrained to music in the presentation.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
I could show stuff off of YouTube as well, show whatever, you know. So it's an interesting medium for sure, the way it mixes all those kind of elements. And I think that's why I've been really leaning into Twitch lately.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a bad platform to invest some time into, for sure.
At all.
It's hard to get off the ground, though, so I hear.
Really is, really is. You've got to be consistent.
Right.
And it's hard not to, you can't just tell somebody, like, don't be frustrated, you know, but you can't let the frustration beat you down, you know. Some people get on, it's instant, and you pop.
Yeah.
A lot of people, you just have to do it for a couple years.
You have to grind.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But it's like anything worth earning, you know.
Right. I mean, same thing with the music industry. Some people will just dip their toes in and they skyrocket to the top, and others you have to grind for years to get somewhere.
For sure, for sure. You really have to do it for you. You have to make sure you do it to a point that makes you happy, and then that'll reflect in what you do, you know.
And on that, I saw that you've done a little bit of touring in your day. I don't remember what project it was with, but you've toured around the U.S. and Canada. And could you tell me a little bit about that experience and how that came about? That's pretty significant.
Well, those are wonderful experiences. When we didn't really tour much as Liquid Stereo Project outside of Texas,
right?
But from that band, I got involved with a hip-hop collective called the Word Association.
Right.
And that was where I first started getting to tour the States. We would tour the Midwest a lot because we made some Chicago connections. We would go up to, like, New York and Philadelphia, just drive, you know, like drive for days up there, like 7 or 8 of us in a little van, for sure. Where the Canada and Europe stuff came from was we had a MySpace page with the Word Association of all sites, and a band out of France called Experience reached out to us, and they were like, we like what you guys do. There's a compilation we're a part of, and we'd like to collaborate with you to do a song. We did that song. They really liked that song. The label they were on liked the song, offered us a chance to do an EP. Yeah. So we recorded an EP, got signed, had a whole band, made an album, got to tour. Finally got accepted to South by Southwest, stuff like that. So that was awesome. As somebody who was just like, oh, regular people can make music, to get to the point to where you're actually on a label and you're getting to, like, tour and see the rock star life. It felt very fulfilling and very validating to reach that point. With no expectations of ever really getting to that point. Right.
I mean, I bet that's not a thing that most people can say that they've experienced and that they've accomplished.
For sure.
Yeah. So that's a once in a lifetime thing, and I really applaud you for being able for achieving that. Thank you. Despite all the odds.
Because the odds really are stacked against you, you know. And for us, it was such a happenstance thing. It would almost be the kind of thing where you get that message and you don't even take it seriously. You know, you're like, oh, whatever. You know, this will never lead to anything. But why not? We were like, why not? And it led to changing all of our lives, you know.
It shows the importance of having a presence online and on social media.
Very much so.
Because something like a MySpace message could change your whole life in a year. Yeah,
a site that's not even really around anymore.
That's true.
It's crazy.
Yeah. We've been talking a lot about music. throughout this interview, and we're going to get back to this interview in just a minute, but first I do need to talk a little bit about another kind of music, and that being jazz. If you enjoy it, you might want to tune in here on KTSW 89.9 Sundays at 7 in the morning to listen to Jazz Inspired, where world-renowned jazz pianist Judy Carmichael explores creativity and inspiration with their weekly guests. These celebrated artists, they share their stories and discuss their creative process, which, in my opinion, is pretty significant if Judy Carmichael will divulge into her creative process on radio every week. So if that sounds like of interest to you, tune in to Jazz Inspired Sundays at 7 in the morning here on KTSW. And if you want some more info, go to jazzinspired.com. I'll be right back with this interview with Chief in just a minute after a couple promos. You're listening to KTSW 89.9.
I'm having so much trouble with my writing. Maybe I should go check out Twitter. Maybe a snack would help.
Go visit the Texas State Writing Center. You can register for a one-on-one session to help with your writing. They can help with brainstorming, formatting, revision, and so much more. Visit writingcenter.txstate.edu for directions and to register for an appointment.
Now about that snack.
A message from KTSW, the other side of radio.
The Other Side of Radio includes so much more than just music. Follow our Twitter at KTSW_899 to get the info you need for upcoming specialty shows and events. And take a look at our TikTok at the same username to see behind-the-scenes content of your favorite specialty shows and DJs. Our Instagram at KTSW 89.9 showcases our graphic design team and music reviews from the music staff. Our social media accounts are a great way to get to know our KTSW staff, so hit follow and we'll see you on the other side of radio.
Welcome to 60 Second Civics, the daily podcast of the Center for Civic Education. I'm Mark Gage. Most Americans during the colonial period were farmers. Those who were not followed various trades, working as brickmakers, carpenters, printers, sailors, shoemakers, and even wig makers, among other professions. Wigs were fashionable in 18th century Europe and in the American colonies. They were a sign of wealth and elevated social status, but few could afford them. One favorite American pastime was speculating on land, which was mostly undertaken by the wealthy, such as George Washington. Washington surveyed land extensively and eventually owned more than 65,000 acres. Although most colonial settlements were located on the coast, Americans pushed westward in search of land, which caused conflict with Native Americans and with the French. That's all for today's podcast. The show's theme song is Complacent by Cheryl B. Engelhardt. You can find Cheryl online at cbemusic.com. 60 Second Civics, where civic education only takes a minute.
You're listening to Other Side Drive here on KTSW 89.9. We're interviewing Chief with Chief and the Doomsday Device. We've been talking a whole lot about what you've done throughout your career, with be it music, film. You're keeping your blog up to date for however many years.
many years.
But what I want to ask you now is about the future. What do you see for Chief and the Doomsday Device in the future, or Nameless Faceless Films in the future? What do you want your legacy to be on this project, or any project you do? How do you see yourself being remembered?
Okay, so
deep question.
No, it's all good. Yeah, I was thinking more like a list, a checklist. But as far as being remembered, I think my legacy in my eyes has always been about, if I can do it, you can do it. Because I've learned to be motivated, but I wasn't the most motivated high schooler. I kind of just leaned on natural whatever. But the difference between being the guy in the front row of a concert and the guy on stage is really just how much do you want it? How bad do you want it? So I want to kind of be the example of what a motivated fan can be if they want to take part and be a part of the legacy of music or film or whatever. So I think that's what I want to leave behind.
Yeah.
And then as far as what I want to accomplish in the near future, I would like to make a feature film at some point here, be it independently or, if I get lucky on a major scale.
Who knows? Lightning might strike twice.
You never know. Yeah. And then I want to hit the road hopefully by next year. I'd like to do some more touring.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's what's on my docket for sure.
Right.
In the upcoming few years.
Well, if you do make a feature film, I'll make sure to watch it, and if you go on tour, I'll try to buy a couple tickets, and we'll go see you perform.
Appreciate it. Yeah. Well, y'all just let me know, and I'll throw you on the list. We'll do that.
I appreciate that.
Of course.
Thank you so much, Chief, for coming in here and doing this interview with us. We very much enjoyed talking with you. Very pleasant to interview. Is there anything you want to plug where people can find you?
Chief and TheDoomsdayDevice.com is pretty much the hub for everything. That's the good starting place if you remember nothing else. And then if you're down with other socials, I've got @ChiefDoomsday on lock everywhere. So
nice.
Yeah, I'm not hard to find.
Right. Yeah. Well, thank you again, Chief, for coming in.
I appreciate y'all for having me.
Of course. You're listening to Other Side Drive here on KTSW 89.9. Coming up next is Whippoorwill by Stephen J. If you do want to call in and request a song, you can call the number 512-245-3473, and we will try to find a request for you here on our radio broadcast. But you're listening to KTSW, the other side of radio.